If the last couple of years of AI adoption felt like just a frantic, exhilarating sprint, a time that was all about velocity, then this next chapter, it's proving to be something else. It's far more strategic.
Yeah.
And I think ultimately more consequential.
Hmm.
We're seeing this shift, right, from raw acceleration to structural alignment.
That's the core tension. Absolutely. Organizations just rushed to deploy AI wherever they could find speed. Faster code, quicker data analysis, faster customer service. And speed was the only thing that mattered. The early advantage, it all went to the velocity champions.
But the stack of sources you've pulled for us today,
Yeah.
they're all pointing to this really clear fundamental shift, and it's moving fast toward 2026.
Yeah.
The urgent question isn't how fast can we go
Yeah.
anymore. It's become how coherently does this fit into the fabric of the business?
Coherence is everything. It really is. The problem with just pure acceleration without alignment is that it inevitably creates systemic friction. Yeah. I mean, if your systems are sprinting, but your governance, your decision loops, your whole org structure, they're still just walking, well, trust starts to erode. Systems get strained. And those cost savings you booked, they often just reappear later as, unexpected costs, rework, complexity.
So this deep dive is really about interpreting those shifts, the ones that are rewriting the operating rules of business.
Yeah.
It's the difference between AI as a fancy new engine versus AI becoming the entire transmission system.
Exactly. And that changes the risk model completely.
So if it's becoming the core transmission, where does this new reality even begin? Our sources suggest it starts with how we even classify AI. For most of us, it was a tool, right? A chatbot, maybe some software helping with one little task. It lived on the edges.
And that model is already, functionally obsolete. The transition we're tracking now is AI moving from being a tool to becoming an operating layer.
An operating layer. So less like an app and more like electricity,
Yeah.
utility.
That's a great way to put it. It sits beneath your applications, it's embedded deep inside your processes, and this is the crucial part, it's right alongside your decision loops. It's influencing everything, how work flows, how priorities get set.
Which means leadership can't just delegate AI to a pilot program or the IT department anymore.
No, not at all. If it's an operating layer, that responsibility has to cut across the entire organizational chart.
So AI strategy is no longer a subset of tech strategy.
It becomes inseparable from the organization's operating strategy. Full stop. You need alignment from business leaders, from risk officers, from the C-suite, all at the same time. And the organizations that get this, that embed AI into their core operating cadence, the actual rhythm of their work, they're the ones compounding advantages. In consistency, in learning, and yes, in speed, they move faster because they're moving together.
Wow. Okay, so if we're moving from a tactical tool to this foundational operating layer, the economic impact has to be massive. Let's talk about that disruption, because this is where the conventional logic of business really starts to break down. Historically, value has been tied so directly to effort. You bill for hours, you justify a budget by headcount.
And that link, that historical connection between human effort and organizational value, it's fundamentally weakening because AI just makes execution faster, cheaper, and vastly less resource intensive. That old logic value is determined by human input. AI shatters that first.
But if we stop anchoring value to human effort, doesn't that create a kind of philosophical problem for a lot of companies, professional services, manufacturing companies that have always sold capacity? What replaces it?
The sources all point in one direction: accountability for outcomes. Buyers, whether they're B2B clients or internal teams, they just care less and less about how the work gets done. The focus shifts entirely to the result, speed, quality, risk reduction, measurable business impact.
So we're shifting from selling effort to selling leverage.
Precisely. That's a perfect way to phrase it. Organizations that align their incentives around those outcomes, they gain massive leverage. They're not succeeding by doing more work, but by delivering clearer, more definitive value. And if leaders just keep optimizing for utilization, just keeping everyone busy, they're going to fundamentally struggle to explain their value in this new world. That's a real trap.
That makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so if execution is now cheap and abundant, if the AI can write the code or draft the brief, the human skill that becomes scarce, it has to be judgment.
That defines the reorganization of work. Right there. AI is fantastic at generating options, at seeing patterns, at doing tasks with incredible speed. But what it doesn't do, not reliably anyway, is decide what really matters. It doesn't weigh complex trade-offs or, and this is critical, own the consequences.
It has to feel incredibly unsettling for professionals who built entire careers on just execution speed or technical mastery. So roles aren't vanishing, but they're being reshaped around that human element.
Absolutely. The most valuable people moving forward are the orchestrators, the ones who can manage these intelligent systems, who can interpret the output and know when it's wrong, and who can validate the decisions. The ability to exercise informed judgment and carry that accountability, that moves right to the center of the value chain.
And this has huge implications for talent strategy. When we hear about reskilling, it's not just teaching people how to use a new AI tool.
No, it's so much deeper. It's about cultivating wisdom, stronger domain judgment. Reskilling is about developing better decision-making, critical thinking, ethical reasoning. The risk that the sources all highlight is, well, it's profound. If you just automate execution without developing human judgment, you risk hollowing out your leadership capability. You can't just swap out judgment for automation. The system becomes incredibly fragile.
That is a serious warning. Okay, let's shift gears a little to the competitive landscape. In the early days of this AI sprint, everyone was obsessed with benchmarks. Which model is biggest? Which one scored highest on a test? It was all about model quality.
And what's so fascinating is how quickly that focus has matured. It's moved downstream. Competitive advantage is no longer primarily about the raw capability of the model you have access to. I mean, the best models are becoming widely available anyway. Advantage is now determined by workflow and option.
Meaning, did the AI actually make it into the daily decision loops where it really matters?
Exactly. Adoption, trust, deep integration. That stuff matters so much more than novelty or some new high score on a test.
So is it that model quality is just becoming a commodity? Or is the integration friction just a much higher hurdle to clear?
It's the friction. It's always the friction. The sources give a great example. An organization with, let's say, modest models embedded deeply into daily operations, a system people actually trust and use, that organization will often massively outperform a competitor that has advanced capabilities trapped in disconnected tools.
Tools nobody uses because it's too much effort.
Right. So the competitive moat isn't built on the intelligence. It's built on distribution, on change management, and on making AI a habitual, integrated behavior.
Which means leadership has to completely transform how they measure success. It's not about pilots launched anymore.
No, it has to shift to decisions improved, cycle times reduced, outcomes sustained. And that elevates this from a tech project to a board-level strategic concern. It's about whether you can actually deliver value or not.
And as AI gets embedded into real-time operations, financial decisions, supply chains, we have to talk about governance, a reactive policy review. Checking a box after the fact, that's just not going to cut it.
It's totally insufficient. And this connects right back to alignment. It points directly to this concept of governance by design. Because these systems are influencing mission-critical decisions in real time, the controls, the auditability, the transparency, all of it has to be architected right into the workflows from the very beginning. You cannot bolt it on later.
That sounds like a really heavy lift, a lot of upfront investment. But the sources seem to frame it as a competitive advantage, not just a compliance burden.
It's both. It is a necessity driven by regulation and just self-preservation, but it's also a huge advantage. The organizations that embed governance early, they move faster, they have fewer reversals, they avoid all that crippling friction and rework and reputational risk. So effective governance is really about making smart architectural choices that let you scale AI with confidence, not with caution.
This brings us to the final and maybe the most consequential structural shift, this strategic split that's developing between organizations. The sources seem to put companies into two camps, the adapters and the redesigners.
That's right. The adapters, they're using AI to optimize their existing models. They automate a task here, improve efficiency there. They get short-term incremental gains, but they face diminishing returns pretty quickly because the core structure, the value chain, it all stays the same.
And the redesigners, they sound like they're on a completely different planet.
They are playing a different game entirely. Redesigners see AI as a chance to rethink their entire operating model from the ground up. They're changing decision rights. What does the human authorize versus the system? They're restructuring teams, changing pricing, reconfiguring whole workflows. They aren't just doing the same things faster. They're fundamentally changing what the business is.
Can you give us a quick hypothetical? Because that difference feels enormous.
Sure. Think of a global bank. An adapter might use AI to write the first draft of a compliance report. Save some analyst time. It's an incremental gain. A redesigner, though, they look at the whole loan approval process and realize AI can handle 90% of the risk assessment in real time. So they restructure the entire lending team. They replace layers of middle management with a small team focused only on orchestrating the system and handling the 10% of exceptions. It's a total redesign.
And the gap between those two groups must just widen incredibly fast. Optimization gives you a little bump, but redesign gives you compounding exponential value.
That divergence is the whole story. It explains why some organizations feel like they're constantly under pressure, even after spending millions, while others just seem to pull away. It's not about access to the tech. It's about the willingness to rethink those foundational assumptions. The choice is, well, it's stark. Do the same things faster or do different things altogether.
So what does this all mean? The challenge has clearly stopped being technical. It's now entirely structural. It's strategic.
For leaders, yeah, the central questions are no longer about platforms. They're how are critical decisions made here? Where does accountability truly sit? Which parts of our model must be redesigned versus just automated? The leaders who focus on that operating model level are the ones who position their organizations to just absorb change without constant disruption.
And for you, the professional listening to this, what does this organizational realignment mean for your own career?
Your advantage comes from being able to work across these complex systems, to exercise superior judgment, and to take real responsibility for outcomes. The core skills are now comfort with ambiguity, ethical reasoning, and decision-making when things are uncertain. The question for your own role is no longer how replaceable a single task is, but how central you are to maintaining that critical alignment for the organization.
So the acceleration phase, that just made AI visible. But this alignment phase, this is what will determine who actually benefits.
The operating rules of business are being rewritten quietly. And the winners won't be the ones who moved the fastest, but the ones who integrated most coherently and redesigned most thoughtfully. This isn't a race anymore, it's a reordering. So the question for you to think about is, what foundational assumption in your own work about value or effort or accountability are you willing to rethink based on this shift?